We're going?
All right, we rolling?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to introduce our guest?
Yeah. We got Ben Brooks here, who's an editor at FSG MCD. He got the best taste in the whole game.
Best taste, certified best taste.
Wait, where's my camera?
The camera's there.
Okay. Hi.
Yeah, and we're hey Ben. Good to have you on.
Hey, Sean.
Hey,
Yeah, make sure kind of go right there with
Kiss
the
it
mic.
almost.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we're talking about Via Ápia, which is a book that Ben published by Giovanni Martins, who's a big time Brazilian writer.
Yeah.
Wait, do you want to talk? Like, I want to know how you even found out about this book, like how you got into it.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I mean, it's sick that you're publishing this book. I was excited about that.
I'm really excited. When I lived in Brazil, I moved to Brazil in 2018. I was an English teacher there, and I spoke Spanish already, and I was learning Portuguese and sort of like figuring out how to speak Portuguese. And I was reading a lot, and so that was kind of my intro to Brazilian literature. It was just getting stuff from the library at the university where I worked. And Giovanni Martins writes in this style that is very like oralidade, like the way people speak. And so there was a ton of stuff that I had no idea what I was reading.
Yeah.
Not only did I not even really speak Portuguese, there was all this vocab that I just had no context for.
Like slang?
Yeah, slang, isms, even the way that the narration is, even in like a third person narrator, he employs that same like cadence and quality of the language. And so I was reading and I was like, I don't know what this is, but I like it. And there were short stories.
So that was his first book. That was
Sun on My Head.
Yeah.
Sol na Cabeça.
2018, right?
I believe, or 2017.
Yeah.
And when I came to FSG, I realized that we published him in translation. I had no idea that he was even I just recognized the name, and the cover is very similar to the Brazilian cover, so I knew the book. And so then flash forward.
Kind of like put it on your chin.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. Just like this, that close.
Can we do
close.
some like me mamo?
Yeah, exactly. No, that's coming up good. That's coming up good. I just want to make sure the streets can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. Word. Okay. Just give me I'll
just give you one of these.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
You're only our second guest.
Wait, so you're not Brazilian?
No.
Okay.
That's a common misconception.
Common misconception.
Oh yeah.
But I lived in Brazil for about 3 years.
He's Brazil fishing,
No, I make no claims. I stake no
good.
claims. I claim nothing. But
nice.
So I read him when I came to FSG. Realized that we were publishing him in translation, and then the new novel came through. I guess came out in Brazil in the fall of 22, and I think we got it on submission sometime after that.
Yeah.
Early 2003 is when we made the acquisition.
Did you have to fight for it?
That's an interesting question. Not so much, because we already published Giovanni.
Yeah.
And so, house authorship goes a long way. And so it wasn't so much that I had to fight to do it. It just was that figuring out how to do it and the format. And because we did the stories in hardcover and we're doing Via Ápia as a paperback original. So just, it wasn't a fight, but it was just sort of having to be strategic about how to make it work.
And what do you like about this book? Like what was charging you up about it?
Okay, well, I know you guys are big into astrology.
Yeah.
So I'm a Cancer and I am a total softie. And this book is about friendship and it's about home in a lot of ways. And so I just really fell in love with these characters. And I think just to sort of set up what the novel is about, it's about these 5 friends who live in Rocinha, which is the biggest favela in Rio. And over the course of this novel, there's this huge police campaign in their neighborhood. And just sort of the occupying force of the police in their day-to-day lives has huge effects on these guys' lives. So without spoiling anything, I will just say that I was completely, I was just like head over heels in love with these characters and seeing kind of what is going on with their worlds and their families and their friends. And by the time you get to the end, it just is like such a punch. And so and it just is really representative to me of like the best of just like Brazilian contemporary literature. I think it just goes really hard.
Yeah.
And so
he's a big deal over there.
Huge.
Yeah, it's a
You've
big
known about
deal.
him for a while.
Yeah. I mean, I knew from the first book, and then this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Like it's on school curriculums and shit like that.
Yeah.
You know.
Nice.
What do you think of it?
I mean, it was good. It was funny. There's just blasting spliffs constantly, dude.
Yeah, they're smoking like
made me keep wanting to smoke a spliff. I was like, dude, I gotta stay focused. I got deadlines. But no, it was funny. Like I was curious. Yeah, the slang is funny. And it's interesting because there's choices being made.
Yeah.
I was like, I think like a couple times they say sus. I'm like, dude, I definitely introduced sus into American literary lexicon.
Yeah.
Someone find a counterexample. I'm pretty sure I allowed that to be an okay thing to say.
Well, I mean, Julia might have read fuckboy.
A lot of the contractions, a little fuckboy coded. It's pretty sick.
Well, I know she told me that she read my book before she translated it.
Nice.
And shit, so I was kind of like, God, I was like, look.
No, but it kind of feels like your flow a little bit too. I liked it a lot. I'm like a little over halfway.
Yeah. So this is something like.
And Julia, just to say that Julia translated the stories also.
Yeah,
and
Julia
she's translated
Sanchez.
all
Nice.
of Julia Sanchez. Shout out. She's translated.
It's a hard book to translate.
Giovanni's stuff. Yeah.
I mean,
completely.
I reread it in Portuguese just for this, and I mean, honestly, I was like so much more impressed this time around by the book, And this is something
brilliant.
that I was talking to Sean about was like, so I try not to, I don't think that sociology should always be a big part of the artistic evaluation of a book, right? Like, I mean, I feel like you see a lot of that now. Like, you get points for certain type of sociology in the United States that's not even that radical. Like, they're doing something that, and it's just not even like we've seen this before, and you're getting extra points for that.
You're talking about in fiction.
Yeah, in fiction, like books. Oh, this is from, I mean, but for this book, I think it's actually like pretty radical. Like, just the fact that, I mean, I know Giovanni, like I heard him talking on a podcast where he loves Machado de Assis is like one of the first people he got into. And just like, that's the most canonical Brazilian writer is a black dude from Rio, right? That is the most canonical Brazilian writer. And he never wrote about, his own personal experience like that. And just to get like this third person, like kind of Machado novel, like this big vast novel where the third person is like slanged out, and it's just like I just was really like blown away by that. And just like now this is the canonical contemporary Brazilian
Talk about
novel,
it. Let's talk about it.
It really is, though.
Is this a book that? Oh wait,
go ahead.
I don't know if this is. There was a certain rapper that was maybe gonna blurb it.
We can't talk about that.
I know we ain't gonna talk about it.
Now I got his own publishing.
Bleep that out.
Yeah.
I said a certain rapper.
Drake was gonna.
I said a
blurb
certain
it.
rapper. It was Chance the Rapper.
No, I think you get Chance to blurb.
Chance would blurb.
Yeah. They're actually Nix and Cham. They're putting me on the cover instead of Chance's blurb. They don't want Chance's blurb.
Yeah. They passed Chance the Rapper was too nice to his wife, so everyone turned on him.
There is a lot of just like sort of what you were saying about the sociology, like, yeah, and because it's based on real events, and there is an element that is like very real.
So Sean, what's going on in this, right? So like, right before the World Cup and the Olympics and shit.
Bro, I read most of it, bro.
Yeah, I know. But do you know like what the police was trying to do and shit?
They're trying to
like,
clear. I mean,
like they're
they
pacifying. They're pacifying.
They mention
the
it in there,
favelas, right?
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. They're trying to pacify it for the World Cup.
Yeah, just to clean things up, clean Rio up. Like they put a big ass wall on the road.
Yeah.
From the airport to cover up the favelas and shit coming into Rio. Like they were just like, we don't want that to be a problem.
When's this come out?
This comes out July 1st.
Okay, nice.
I think it's worth mentioning too, like the geography of Rio and like where Rocinha is. Like the south zone of Rio is like the sort of touristic center. That's where Copacabana is, Ipanema. Yeah. Like a lot of tourism is there, and Rocinha is just to the west of that, so still in the south zone. And it's,
so it's like real, like when they're dropping down all the time, they're going to the damn, they're going down to Le Blanc.
Okay,
right, which is the hoidiest fucking area in all of Rio. So it's I mean, everything.
What do you mean when they're going down? They're going out?
Yeah, when they're going down from
the
the
geography
hill.
too is the
Yeah.
hill. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, up on
so
the
they're
hill.
up on the hill.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they go down the pista. I don't know what she translated that as.
I think we use blacktop.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Go down the blacktop.
Yeah.
That's where the fucking. That's like hoity world.
I see.
you know.
Yeah.
So
Peninsula
there's-
Blowing, Panama, and then
No,
Copacabana.
it moves good. It's 4 bros, or it's like 2 brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this one like white boy who's like
The
rich.
token
Yeah.
white friend.
He's like the
He's
playboy.
not rich.
No, he's from
but-
the hood, but he hangs out with the
Okay,
playboys.
yeah. But so sometimes they're like, testing his gangster.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yes.
No, I like when he goes.
And
There's a
then-
moment where he goes.
Yeah.
They're all talking about the police. Man, I've been stopped. He goes, man, I've been lucky. They ain't even touch me. They
Exactly.
ain't even
Oh,
stop
yeah,
me.
yeah, exactly. But
I love that character though too.
and then
Yeah,
there's
Biel.
one
Yeah.
other bro.
so there's
What's
two.
his name
There's
again?
two
There's 2
brothers.
I mean, like
Washington
proverbial
Wesley,
bro.
and then
There's the
Muriel
soldier.
Douglas and
Oh yeah,
Biel live
Yeah.
together.
exactly. But they're just working jobs, like
See, that's what I was really
catering
fucking
jobs,
with.
like
They're working.
smoking weed, living in a place, just blowing up the place, about to get evicted.
Yeah.
Right.
And it just moves short sections, pretty gradually through time, different perspectives, and
And it's just the days. Like
yeah,
this
They're
is their
all-
day.
exactly.
They're
They're
going to
all
work.
a day.
You know.
Yeah,
They're
no,
all
it's
dated,
moving
yeah.
good. I'm liking it a lot.
Yeah.
I got Sean into it
A
by
lot.
telling him that when Wesley's going out with the girl that he's
Talia.
that he meets at work, and they get the little motel, and he bangs her up good, better than she ever been banged. And then she wants to go again in the middle of the night, and he's like, well, I gotta go. He goes to snort some coke, and then his dick is all soft, and then she lets him have it for having a soft dick.
Yeah.
And then he has to quit his damn job.
Well, she
And
lets
it's
him
never
have it-
enough for these women.
No.
We're trying to get Ben in on our
Correction.
deep Patreon.
She gets mad at him for doing drugs.
Yeah,
She finds
yeah.
the drugs.
Harold, that's not right. That's what I said to him too. I said, hold on, that's not what he said. That's not
her
that's not
stepdad
what it
was
was
a-
about at all.
Correct.
Um,
And I think sort of on the geography is such a big part of this, and the
Yeah.
up and the down, and the scaling of the Moho, the hill.
Yeah.
You know?
yeah, and the Via Appia. Sorry to cut you off,
Go
but
ahead.
it's the main road.
Yeah.
but is
Yes.
that based off of Appian Way?
so
that a play
it's
on
the
that?
same name. Yeah, it's the
You know
same
what the Appian Way is,
in
right?
Rome, in ancient
Yeah,
Rome.
it's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
main, the
Nice.
first road.
No, I didn't even notice
Went
that.
all the
Yeah,
way
yeah,
down
yeah.
the-
I didn't. Giovanni told me about that, and actually, Via Ápia is a real street in
Right.
Rocinha, and it's sort of the main commercial thoroughfare.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's also sort of the dividing line between Rocinha and the rest of Rio in
Yeah,
a way. So yeah, in a lot of ways, it's about sort of that channel and that transfer between places and sort of the boundaries that are
Yeah.
put up by the
Yeah.
police or just put up because of the way the city is organized. So yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the it was interesting the way they're kind of outside the the bureaucracy, and the guy and the police is coming in trying to impose the bureaucracy on all of them. Like, now he got to take this damn driver's test. He fails. Is it Washington?
Yeah.
Or he fails the
Or
driver's
one of them.
the motorcycle test.
Exactly.
He got to just be on a straight line. He's like, I've been fucking driving the motorcycle
Yeah.
up through these crazy alleys my whole
Mhm.
life, and I
Yeah.
got to take the test on a little and
Yeah.
then he put his foot on the ground, and they failed him.
Yeah.
But that is also a huge part of it too. And talking about the drugs is interesting because a lot of the kind of early readers have responded to the drugs.
Just too many drugs.
Well, not even too many, but just that it, when I think of it, I don't think of it as a novel about drugs. But
Yeah.
it really is about the decriminalization of drugs.
Yeah.
Not so explicitly, but that the way that drugs are employed by the state to control people.
Yeah.
I mean, that is really the thrust of why somebody did say, I think that they're smoking too much, and I was like, well, if you think about why are they turning to drugs? What are they trying to escape or numb or whatever?
But it's also so communal. They're always
Yeah.
I mean the whole
It's a
thing's
different
about
perception.
community.
Yeah, and
right?
it's a different sort of yardstick to measure what is good, and it is a huge bonding thing for them. And the rules too that govern the Boca and when they go and when they don't go and all these things there is a different kind of order than the one that the state is trying.
Yeah.
But
But you guys liked it?
I mean, I loved it. The second time in Portuguese, I was really I was really fucking with it
Yeah.
big time. Just the third person too. I just
It's
love
genius.
like the pace of it. It's just every day, and
Yeah.
they're working the day, and then it's and then
Yeah.
it just rolls along like that. And
Yeah.
I was itching to smoke weed the whole time I was reading the book.
I was
you know,
too.
it
I was
bad.
too. Bad influence on me.
So yeah, maybe. So you met Giovanni.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Okay, so this was in January. So yeah, this is right before the acquisition happened. I was in Brazil for the holidays, and we were talking about doing the acquisition, whatever. And I just hit him up on Instagram, and I was like, "Hey, I work at FSG, and I'm in Rio. Like, if you're around, I would love to like meet you and talk to you about the translation and all of these things." And so he was like, "Yeah, do you want to come meet me on Via Ápia?" And I was like, "Of course." Like, how can I say no? So we just like had a few beers and hung out, and he was like, took me on a moto tour around.
He was
up
driving?
the hill. No, like
Yeah.
on moto taxis.
Yeah.
And but he's so chill. He's like such good people, and he was telling me about like, the first book, the story collection, was translated to like 10 languages, and
it was a crazy hit.
It was a huge hit, and he was
and
in
it's
Paris.
like slim. It's
and
only like 110 or something like that.
yeah, I'd have to see what the numbers are, but I'm sure it sold upwards of like 200,000 copies.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Damn.
And don't quote me on that, but but yeah, he was like,
No.
I was just in Paris, and all of these. He's just so laid back, talking about his literary influences, talking about how he got started in writing, and I just was like, this is like, not to be corny, but it's like, this is the reason I like am in publishing. It's like to work with people to like put these books and give these writers like as much of a platform as possible.
And you guys smoke weed together, of course.
Yeah,
he loves weed, huh?
He
in
loves
real life.
weed.
That's not just a bit for the book.
No, he's
I mean, obviously.
he's producing a show. He produces a show, like a documentary series about weed, and he told me that his next project that he wants to do is a nonfiction project about the decriminalization of weed.
I hope he keeps writing novels. I hope he doesn't get
I think
stuck
he is.
in the weed encyclopedia.
I think he is also continuing to write fiction.
Yeah.
His influences are really broad too, and interesting, and like.
Yeah. What did he tell you he reads?
Well, him and Annie Ernaux are like hit it off when she was in Brazil.
Oh, for real?
And they're fans of each other.
Wow.
What else? He's a big fan of Ursula K. Le Guin.
Okay.
Which was sort of interesting kind of, and he reads a ton of, national, like Brazilian domestic stuff. So, yeah.
How long you been publishing?
I started this job in the fall of 2021, so 3.5 years, a little more, coming up on 4 years.
In the pandemic, kind of.
Yeah,
right
at the end of lockdown. Basically.
What were you doing before?
I was teaching English in Brazil.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So I was there for 3 years.
How'd you get into Brazil?
Well, I lived in Colombia before that, and my roommates my last year that I lived in Medellin were these two Brazilian guys, and so I heard them speaking Portuguese all the time, and I was like, I want to know what that's all about. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
But so like, what are you trying to publish? Because you're kind of coming up as an editor now.
Kind of.
Like I mean, you really coming up. I mean, when I met you, you were. I met Ben because my Tropicalia was submitted to Jackson Howard. Right. And Ben read it first, and he wanted to it, and Jackson said, "Fuck no, fuck Harold." He said all this.
You just
and then Ben pulled up at the event we did at the Greenlight bookstore.
Oh, that's
and
right.
he was
that's
like,
right.
"Yeah, that's where I met him." Was
cool.
I was like, "Who's this random guy in the crowd asking all these questions?"
Nice. That was a funny event.
And then back then you were just an assistant.
Yeah, editorial
to Jackson, but now you're your own editor.
Well, no, kind of. So I was Jackson, and I never like had a professional.
Yeah.
Like we both work for Sean, who's the publisher of MCD. So I was Sean's editorial assistant at the time. I'm an assistant editor now, so I'm still on the climb. But yeah, that was a different era for sure. And I think also, I didn't. Publishing has a huge like learning curve. I don't think I would have been able to publish Tropicalia in like a way that I can do Humpty Dumpty.
So
yeah, but that is I really loved the book when I read it, and it made me miss Brazil, and it made me also excited about, you know, the possibilities of like reading more stuff about Brazil that was, you know, from a different perspective than I'd read before.
It's like the Playboy version of Via Ápia.
Right. That is a great descriptor.
My book.
What you mean?
It's it's the Playboy from Copacabana.
Oh yeah, exactly.
It's
The
Playboy version of Via Ápia.
You're not far off. I mean, there is a lot of
honestly,
shit in there.
Yeah, there is. There's
there's a lot of what?
Just similar thematic and
and I didn't read it till after the book was published. I read it in 2014. This book, it was out in 2022. It was the first time I read it. It was the beginning of last year. But yeah, there is some stuff, and I mean, there's some funny stuff too. Like he kind of does, like, you know, BL is a Vasco fan because he's white, and you know, I do the white black Vasco Flamengo thing in Tropicalia too.
Yeah, you got the same teams.
Yeah, you know, because the guy who put him on to writing was this Vasco fan, you know, that he credits at the beginning of the book, even though he's a Flamengo guy, you know. So I mean, that's the our big rivalry.
You think that
what are you?
Vasco.
Okay,
yeah.
You think that was kind of the idea we're thinking of, like, do you think that does factor into like the sociology of a book? Like, how much does that factor into like what you're thinking about? Do you feel like
in terms of publishing?
Yeah, just in the general energy.
Do you have a sociological project? Like, what do you think of all that?
That's a very interesting question.
And especially compared to, I feel like Brazil's very different than the United States. Even though, like, it seems like the most popular books in Brazil are being published by black dudes right now. That's what it seems like.
Jefferson, Giovanni. And black women as well.
Yeah.
And,
yes.
Eliana.
Ben translated a book too.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's, I mean, and you look at the prizes, the like big prize winners. I'm not as like immersed and up to speed as I have been in the past on like who's winning what, but the question is about just like what am I trying to publish?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, books take a long time, and it has to be, you know, it's probably like between 18 months to 2.5 years that you're working on something. And it's like, I have to be excited about it. You know, like that really for me is beyond any other criteria, is like, can I bear to like have this thing in my face for 2.5 years and getting emails about it and having meetings about it. And so it is a high bar, and the writing has to be really good. You know, I think a lot nowadays about just people's time and their attention spans and how long they're going to sit with something. It's like, you really have to deliver. You're basically like, this is true for any kind of selling of anything. It's like, I'm telling you that if you buy this thing, you will get something out of it.
Yeah.
And you will enjoy it. And so like, for me, it has to just be good and it has to be exciting.
Yeah.
And also I think I always ask, I mean, all of the meetings that I've had about acquisitions with authors, I think we talked about this when you came over, is like, what is the point of this book?
Yeah.
Why did you write this? And like, and that says a lot, I think, too, about the mission. You know, something that I really appreciate about the work that we do is that we really, you know, the goal is always to support a writer over a long period of time and, you know, have a career. So many, you guys know, like so many things just like come up and blip and disappear.
For sure.
And don't leave an impression, or, you know, you think like 18 months ago, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. What happened to that? And, you know, so like, and that happens, but it's like, you want something that you think can be good and can stand the test of time. And I want to work with people who are going to grow, you know. And I haven't seen their best work yet. You know, it's coming, you know, that's exciting to me.
So talk about, cause Ben's, you know, if you don't know, Ben's publishing my book next year. So talk about from like what was the process of you even acquiring Humpty? Like how did that happen?
Yeah.
Because I think it's interesting behind the scenes, like how you come up with the fucking advance number, like all that fucking shit. Like,
right. Well, yeah, I guess, and sort of to the previous question, you know, something that I do care about in terms of like my publishing philosophy is like demystifying, like being like having more transparency around what publishing is and what it is not and how it works. So I'm glad you asked. I guess Humpty Dumpty. Okay, so we had talked about it.
Yeah.
I knew you were working on it. And
I sent you an early draft
a while ago.
Yeah.
And then you were like, here are some editors I'm thinking about submitting it to, and I wasn't on the list. I was like, okay.
Well, because I didn't think it was like, I just don't know about, like, I never had a friend who was an editor at a publishing house, which, I mean, it's stupid to even think, like, not to send it to someone who I already know, you know, but I was just like, I don't know. I don't want to. And anyway, Ben told me specifically, we went out for a drink and he said, I've been getting so many Appalachian novels. I don't want to publish no Appalachian novels. So I was like, he think this shit is Appalachian, so I don't want to, you know.
You're not wrong. There was like a week where I got, or maybe a 2 week span where I got like 3 or 4 submissions about Appalachia, and I was like, what is it that people are associating me with this? But I don't think of Humpty Dumpty as an Appalachian.
The Steubenville is right? Steubenville's Appalachia, ain't it?
I got a little Appalachia.
And like, for the record, nothing against Appalachia. I just like, you know, was not gonna read 4 things, you know, and that's the thing too about it having to really stand out. And sometimes you can just tell from the pitch that this is getting sent to 1 million people. And I guess this is also like for people who are listening or whatever, to know, just like, it's the same thing when you're like applying to a job. It's like, you don't just say the same thing in every cover letter.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't submit to an editor and not have any clue who they were or what kind of stuff that they liked or their taste or whatever.
But you probably have a good grasp on like agents and stuff too, and like
who
you trust and who's a, you know, a dud.
Well, yes, but I also think, you know, agents and people are still starting to get to know me, and because just things take such a long time, like I have 4 books that are published, that I published out. So that's not that many. So like as just time goes on, more of those books will be out, and I think people will have a better kind of sense on, you know, and it's not like a formula, but it's sort of, you look at the composite and you're like, okay, well, if he likes this and like this, then he might be into this.
Yeah.
So Humpty Dumpty, I guess you, at a certain point, Chris emailed Jackson and was like, and
Jackson said that Harold Rogers fuck
and
again?
No, Jackson knows from Tropicalia that I'm a huge fan. And so he was like, Harold has a new novel, and Chris told Chris like, oh, you should probably send it to Ben. And also, I'm in the novel. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
So,
how you in the novel?
He's in a footnote. He translated Beatrice's memoir, her book.
Yeah,
hilarious.
So yeah, it.
And where's my notes at?
It's in my backpack right now.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, I started editing it today.
Calling me out on the mic.
I rewrote the first section.
Okay, word.
Today. It's so sick. My rewrite's so sick. I'm just gonna rewrite the whole thing.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I know exactly how I'm gonna do it too.
Okay, I do have notes for you though.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it'll just help me.
We can just do it like parallel image.
Yeah, but you know, I've been.
See, you guys are getting so much. I hope you're putting this on the Patreon. This is some good behind the scenes shit.
There's some shit that I don't, you know, typographically and like visually that I'm fucking with now too. One thing I don't want in the book is this header thing with my fucking name in the title of the book.
You don't like running heads?
I hate that shit. I didn't want that on.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I don't like that at all. I didn't want my name on Tropicalia. On there, but Jay didn't even listen to me. You know,
in the Brazilian edition, they don't have running heads.
No, I want the number at the bottom of the page here.
Write all this down. Write all this down.
I will. I'm going to tell you all. I'm just talking.
Yeah, I think sociology. I think the sociology of a book does matter. Like, it's funny to frame it like that, and I feel like you completely scared of the question because it seemed like we were like gonna bait you into being like, does sociology matter? And it's like,
I think it matters too.
It's like, of course.
Ask me again.
You know, the publishing house. No, I'm not. I'm not trying to get you. I'm just saying.
No, ask me again.
I thought about it, and I think it matters, but in this way, like, in that most of the writers I'm drawn to, like, I liked reading this book, and I love reading books in translation, because it's like, and I was doing this like interview thing yesterday I was telling you about. And it just made me like articulate all the things I think about like what make a thing good and like why you even try to read. And like it is to like try to understand somebody's life, like somebody's interiority.
Yeah.
But then when there's an added component of understanding a whole world that you're unfamiliar with, that makes it sicker. And I think that's why a lot of books in translation are good that I'm drawn to, because they're speaking out of like a super specific, like, I love like the Ferrante novels, Now Scarred. Like these are the best novels.
Yeah.
The Ferrante novels, Now Scarred. I mean, this book is, because half of it is, you're just like, what the fuck is this world?
Yeah.
That they're living in. You know what I'm saying?
What do you mean, I guess, by does sociology, what are you asking?
Well, just to finish the point, and then from a writing standpoint, if a writer doesn't, like, there are certain writers who I know too well, and I can never respect their writing because I know that, or it's like when you're in the MFA, and people will be like, you know, and I'm like, the bottom line is, you haven't done anything in your life yet, or you haven't lived an experience yet that would like be, for me personally, that would be providing some kind of like outside understanding or knowledge. So like, in those two senses, I do kind of think that on some level, the sociology of this book makes it sicker, but obviously it's a slippery thing, because then if you're like only, but and maybe some of the formal element is not being translated, because it is like, I don't know, it's like you're supposed to kind of be like, this is a wild world that I'm hearing about, and that's driving me to continue reading. You know what I'm saying? Whereas you could, if you don't have that, then you're like doing some modernist stuff to try to wow you with your style.
I'm not sure, because if you think about like the original publication, I guess this is true even in Brazil. You know, there are Brazilian readers who've never been to Rio, or there are people in Rio who've never been to Rocinha. So I guess there is a way. It also is like a question about audience. You know, like when I was in Rio, not the time when the story I just told, but the time after that, I saw Giovanni also, and he was at this. The guy who did the cover art for this his name is Maxwell Alexandre, and he had they had an event together basically, and they were giving away a bunch of free copies of this, and you were seeing like the street Via Ápia itself like full of people holding the book, and so like
I've seen Giovanni had those on his Instagram.
Yeah,
those are
so
cool
like,
pictures.
If to someone who is there, there is no kind of voyeuristic or anthropological element, because they're reading about their reality.
Right.
So,
but the anthropological element is the fact that their reality has been depicted in literature, right? Like,
I guess I just mean that there's like windows and mirrors, right? It's like you can look in and see something that's not yours, and you can look at something and see yourself reflected in it. And I think that really great books have the power to do both, obviously. And so I think because of the content of this, it's funny too, because did you read Roleplay?
Yeah, I read some of it. Yeah.
So like I published a book last year that is about Rio, but like at the complete opposite end of the socioeconomic spectrum, and that you could argue in similar ways is a sociological sort of anthropological study of the way wealth warps people's brains, and so I think it's present like you can't really make a decision about whether or not to publish things that have a social element, because everything does.
Okay, so this is what I actually mean. I just realized what I actually mean is that it seems to me that sometimes books are pushed in a way that's like, here's this book from this like, oh, here's and then it'll change your mind. This is how they like here now you can have empathy for these people there.
But
here's
a
it's
shitty guy,
shallow.
but he's sweet.
It's cynical, and it is sort of
and that just doesn't feel like it ever works or makes any sense to me at all.
Well, and you know, let me be careful what I say on this mic, but I will
don't be careful. This is we're in a new era.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think things are.
You're publishing Humpty. Nobody can stop you.
Well, true. No,
you're on the page officially. You made it.
I'm in there. What was I gonna say? No, I mean, I think these things are changing, and it's interesting. Like, I will say, you know, I have worked in publishing for, you know, a few years. I talk to people a lot who have been in the business a longer time, and they're like, it's different and it's the same. and there are waves and there are sort of cycles to these trends that you're describing. And I think now, and I started working in this job in 2021. So sort of like part of the peak of the sort of, reckoning, quote unquote, and within publishing. And I think now, flash forward to now, I don't think that that considerations like the ones you're describing about here's a book to not only that's good to read, but that you'll walk away with something, or that you'll learn how the other side lives.
Yeah.
I don't think that comes into play even like a fraction of what it once did.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually for the better, because I think it sort of respects the reader more. And I think also sort of what I was saying about time and attention, people are going to just buy what they want to buy.
Yeah.
And no amount of sort of, this is good for you, eat your vegetables, like that doesn't work.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think like it is funny to think like whatever trend you're complaining about, you writ large is complaining about in publishing, it's like, yeah, but those books are selling and that's why they're being published, right? People for, however long it lasted, the books that were good for them, they're eating their vegetables or whatever. It's, that they're feeling good about that, maybe they're not feeling good about that anymore, and that's not necessarily what they want from their books.
And what is it even a book for?
Yeah. What is a book for? What is a book for you?
Yeah. I wonder. I mean, I don't think I know even. I think a book, I don't know what a book is for. I think a book depends on what you want to read.
Yeah.
I have like anyone who loves books, we have like a million things on our shelves. They're never all going to get read.
Yeah.
I mean, probably not. And so it's like, you're always making this choice of like, what am I looking for? And again, it's totally subjective. I am chasing an experience to have as a reader.
Where'd you grow up?
I'm from Seattle.
You're from Seattle.
Yeah.
And
Seattle,
then
Washington,
you study
206.
like literature, and did you ever want to write, or you always editing?
Yeah, so I studied Italian literature in college, and religious studies minor. Shout out to Paul, go Blue Demons.
And they didn't make you read Dante?
We read some Dante, but not the entirety of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually translated, my first publication ever, as an adult, my first byline ever as a child was an interview with Lemony Snicket.
Oh, wow. Nice.
That's how my literary interest began. But in college,
I love those fucking books.
Me too. In college, my first, I published a paper in Italian about Dante's poetry, about how he was, he has a sonnet about a boat ride he takes with his friends that is not gay per se, but it's.
Are you saying Dante's gay?
Dante's gay?
It's giving homoerotic. It's giving brodorage.
Bro, he loves Beatrice.
So
she's not even.
She's not a real
been
woman.
Dead for 20 years.
Well, sounds like a closet.
It's a pretty good cover. It's a pretty good
Sounds
cover.
like a closet to me.
Damn.
He was just living with his boys in exile for like his whole life.
Right.
He loved
Like,
living with his boys.
Loved each other so much.
He did hate his wife.
And lust was his biggest problem.
Ding ding ding.
Nah. You can't. We gotta cut this out.
Cut this out.
Yo, this is. I won't lie. No, just play.
Dante. Like, go ahead.
No, so we read Dante, but we read. I did a bunch of stuff. We, did opera and Calvino and theater, like six characters in search of an author. I forget the guy's name, the playwright. Lots of crazy avant-garde shit. Film, Fellini. So it was a very kind of multidisciplinary thing. And yeah, when I graduated, I was like, I don't want to go to Italy because it seems racist.
Yeah.
And not that everywhere else isn't, but it just seemed really intense at the time. And Italian is really cool, but there's only one country on earth that speaks Italian. So I was sort of like, let me try to learn something else that just has more reach, more global speakers. So that's why I ended up going to Colombia.
But what do you think the book's like a book meant to you? I feel like that's what does the book mean to you? What is it?
What is literature's role?
What's a book for?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, I honestly, the more that I do this, like the more, like the less I'm able to think about having a life without like a book kind of centric life. And I guess it's hard to describe. I mean, I really just think that there's like an excitement that comes from reading really good sentences and reading a really good book. And it says so much about people and who we are. You know, sometimes when I read a description of something, I'm like, how is this character even gonna live? You know, like just, so I don't know. I like that element of discovery
like
and of music and
seeing different aspects of humanity and like empathy and stuff like that.
Sort of. I mean, and it depends. You know, it could even also be not even necessarily humanity. Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah, how do we live? How do we make life? And I think that that's something that fiction does incredibly well. You know, like other art forms can sort of touch parts of it, but nothing really quite like, you know, narrative, like prose, or, you know, I guess poetry to an extent, but for me, like a novel, like a fictional world gives you something that you can't get from anything else.
You know,
artistically.
I feel like no art form lasts like longer than a novel. Like you can read Don Quixote and it's still fucking sick, and that's from 1600,
and it's
right?
the most like interior thing.
It's the fullest picture of a consciousness you could have.
Yeah, you're looking at ink on paper, and your brain is like creating the world.
Yeah.
It's and you're like, this is just paper, and this is just ink on paper.
What do you think a book's for?
I mean, it's hard for even me to like articulate it, because it's just like I just don't know what I would do without it personally.
Okay.
Like just, you know, the reading, the living, the writing is one fucking contiguous thing for me. Like that's all I don't even know what else to do. Like I mean, I can't. The way I feel about it, when someone I can't sell you on it, like that's just my natural inclination. It's the most important thing to me.
Yeah, it was funny. I was talking to that girl yesterday, and I was like, just something about that dynamic when someone's like interviewing you and like asking these broad questions. And you just like need to make like authoritative statements that you're not even sure you fully agree with. But I feel like, because I was saying that for a while. Like for a book to be good, you need to do two things. One, get the reader to read all the way to the end.
Flip all the pages. Yeah,
but and be engaged all the way to the end, which is not an easy thing to do.
No.
And that doesn't mean you bought the book. That doesn't mean you took a picture of yourself with the book. That means you read all the way to the end. And two, you have the possibility, the reader has a possibility that they could completely change their perspective on the world in some way. But I don't think a lot of people, I don't think that's actually that, and I realize that that's like a thing that I always go in with. But I don't think that a lot of people, that's as obvious as, I don't know. I don't think that's that common of a way to look at it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of a extreme way to look at it. You know what I mean?
But that ain't the purpose of a book.
I think that's what makes a book
that it can change
reading.
your. Yeah. Well, you know, actually, and this goes into the sociology thing, because I guess the more I think about it, it seems like the more particular an experience is, the more interesting it is.
Yeah.
And if you can make it, you know, alive with language and fucking characters and shit like that, the sickest books are the most specific ass shit. Like that's the sickest books. It's the most specific possible situation in the most, you know, specific language that comes out of the book. You know, that's the sickest. But the generic shit, you know, is like worthless. Yeah.
And also, how much do people change, and how long does that change actually stay with them? I think I think a lot of people have experiences like what you're describing with books, but, you know, flash forward 5 years, like, is the thing that they were left with still present for them, or is it just sort of like a, you know, sort of an echo? Like, I wonder just how sustained those like transformations are. You know,
I mean, we're always changing.
What books change your life?
Well, that's what I was. That's what I was saying, because I was thinking, and then I was also thinking about like like I'm working on all these essays and stuff. So it's like, and especially now that like it's like autopilot for me to like work on certain things. So I'm like, I need to just come up with new ways, keep myself interested.
Yeah.
And like, what's actually useful to like other people. And like, I was just like in this space where I have all this like experience to draw from. And I'm like, what could actually like be useful to like share and have someone read? And I was like talking to like, that's what, when I can't write something, I'll just call people like, yo, what's up? And try to tell them the story and see if it sounds good, you know? But like, I was like, I think there is that element of like, and then I always have the bit that I'm a romance writer and I only care about like romantic relationships or like intimate relationships. And that means, and understanding your intimate relationships. And then it comes to stuff about family and your closest friends. And like, obviously, like, I mean, that's kind of an obvious thing, but stuff that really focuses on family seriously is like naturally compelling.
Yeah.
But then in terms of like what seriously made me change my view on something was, and the girl was like, you know, what's asking for example of it. And it was literally the last thing I read was like Ulysses, like I ran Ulysses back. And like, that's literally just demonstrates my point to a T. It's like, you want to be Christ-like, you want to be like a good man who's like a good husband to your wife. And you might think that you are, but like read this story. Yeah. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like Bloom knows his wife's going to cheat on him. He still has to go about his day, make her breakfast, try to be a good guy still. Yeah. And it takes it to the furthest extreme. And it's like, how do you feel about these aspects of society that are repulsive and scatological and weird? Like, I'll make you look at all of them and I'm going to hide it in mountains of myth and fucking sentences, but that's what makes it, you know, mythical and good.
You know, what's funny about you as a reader, which I like taught me a lot, honestly, about reading and how to engage with literature, is that whatever you have your own designs and you go into the book and you already have whatever's percolating and you find it in whatever you're reading.
I mean, what's the book about? What's the book about? That's what the book's
about. But it is about that. And it just always happens to, you know, it's serendipitous. Like you just find.
What, it's serendipitous that I'm dealing with?
No, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know.
But
yeah, I mean, you
always had like, you know, just this very personal, you know, engagement with it and digging to find what like related to you and how you could understand yourself better. And I mean,
I don't think you're implying that there's some connection to me and Leopold Bloom. There's
I'm not implying that at all. I'm saying that you have designs and
I don't know. I think it is hard to I think that does change, you know, that if you get through that and you understand like the stakes of that, like that he does like up the ante on like what it means to act in like a, I don't know, Christ-like way in that context. And I feel like that's an example of it, but maybe, you know, maybe that's not what everyone thinks. People just want
that's certainly
a nice
not
story.
What everyone thinks, but you know, I think that's a completely.
But I think it's becoming more like that because like books are like novels are like not capturing like the cultural consciousness as much.
So it's becoming more like what? Like a nice story.
like a kind of like
hoopla.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying because there's no hoopla around books. There's no, you know what I mean? Like there's no, the hoopla is elsewhere, and it's very enticing.
There's some hoopla. I mean,
what do you think?
I mean, like mainstream culture.
What do you think but I mean, I don't know. It seems to me like novels are making a comeback.
True.
I mean, Louis C.K.'s writing a fucking stupid novel, you know.
Hey,
it might be good, but yeah, true. I mean, if it's stupid, it's stupid. It don't look too compelling. But what do you think the like state of the publishing industry is now from the inside?
You mean like in terms of like the capital L literature part of it, or like
both, everything? Like what is you know, what's going on? I mean, you're publishing Humpty next year. Like, that's going to be, you know, that's healthy.
Yeah. No, I'm really excited to publish Humpty Dumpty. Just give me a little more of a parameter of what the question is. Like, what do you want to know?
Like, financially, is the publishing industry doing well?
It's okay.
And what you guys are putting out. Like,
Well, okay, so yeah, I mean, well, I know you guys love to talk about James.
Harold does. I never.
no, I'm
First of all, ever's my boy,
that's
dude.
nice.
That's Harold.
He's on every episode. He makes an appearance.
Yeah.
No, I haven't read James, but I think it is a sign.
Never once brought him up.
I think it's a sign that there's of the health of just books in general. That
Yeah, okay,
there's a million people who are reading this book.
Yeah.
I mean, or who
that
read
have
it.
purchased
No,
it.
who
Yeah,
purchased
that have
Who
purchased it
purchased
since
it?
it came
Very
out.
A
different.
million people have purchased it.
Correct.
And we're still trying to find a reader.
I know people have read it. I haven't read it. But I think so. Yeah, books are selling. There's definitely they're not selling as many as they once did. I loved that. I was talking to some coworkers actually about that Sunny interview that you sent me, Sunny Mehta on.
Oh
Charlie
yeah,
Rose.
that one was cool, huh?
And he basically what he's describing is exactly the same as the stuff that's happening today. It's the same, and that was recorded in 1992.
Just publishing, consolidating, and taking less risks.
Sort of about the risk, and sort of just about the kind of the way that you have to get people excited about something, and like sort of the sales part, and the sort of the act of publishing, which is commercial, which is a money making endeavor at its core. You can't divorce that from the other things that it is, and so with all that comes all the attendant problems of any kind of corporate endeavor. So cut that out. I said endeavor twice.
You gotta, but I mean, you've always had to give people a reason to want to read a book,
right?
You know, outside of the book itself.
And I think sort of what we were talking about earlier, those reasons are changing, and people's reasons for turning to a book instead of, say, binging a season of something, or whatever it might be, or a video game, or who knows what. I think those reasons are changing, and I think there are less people who read with that sort of open curiosity than there have been in the past.
Yeah.
I think.
You gotta you gotta push a good book on them.
No, I think because that's the thing. Like that's what I'm saying is, I think that, and this could be wrong. Maybe the publishing industry is great and thriving, but like I think that like as the because there's novel as instruction, there's novel as entertainment, and then there's novel as like pre-novel logic of writing. It's like almost like that's you're talking about bring back the medieval.
Yeah,
it's like that's sort of like theological, like ascetic mode, or it's like a type. I feel like there's there's like a cap on like the type of person who will like buy a book. I feel like there needs to be a new archetype of like a type of person that like could like fuck with the book. I mean, I feel like that's what we're doing. That's what's happening with like comedians being like, oh yeah, I'm writing a novel.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, you know.
I think those people just need to go to a bookstore and buy a book. I mean, they're like they.
No, they need a model of some of a way to like
a way to engage with literature.
Yeah, a way to engage with literature. I think
if those people were. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think there is an archetype, and there is sort of an expectation, a bias towards who is the reader. A lot of times you hear that like, oh, well, the reader this, the reader that. And yeah, I do think that we need to problematize who that reader is.
I'll be in many contexts. Like I'll be at like working a job or something. I'm just like, so I'll just, and I'll just like have a thought like, no one here has ever bought a book and probably ever will. Like they wouldn't even think of themselves as a person who would,
most Americans read less than one book a year. Yeah. And we sort of throw around, this is not, backed up by any real data, but we sort of throw around a number that's like probably 20 to 25,000 American adults are reading like more than a handful of books a year. And so sort of everybody is competing for those same eyeballs.
I think audio is a good thing. Like, when we started voicing over like stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, I noticed that
people listen to my body.
Like
my audio
when I started
Spotify.
putting, my stacks, and I started reading my own stacks on there.
My dad started reading way more.
I just noticed random people like hit me up who I'd never think would read anything. And see, this is what I mean by like giving someone a reason to read something. Like when I started I mean, the stack has been good.
Talk about it.
Just like people that I never thought would ever read my shit are reading these random, and the journals are funny and stuff, but
It's really good.
I'm
I
playing
love the stack.
around and I'm doing like, some difficult things. I mean, they're not like, there's some random ass shit going on in that where I'm really playing around and people are like tuned in just because, I'm reading, there's something to listen to. They know me, they see me putting it. Yeah. And it's just like, and
it's good.
Yeah.
I think people come back because I think it's good.
See, my suspicion is that people, there's one, even the people who ain't reading, like they could get into it. And the people who are reading, they're just reading the books du jour and fucking that shit. They could do with heftier fare. They want more. They want more nourishment. I see that with like Gabby, when
I was gonna say the way that you introduce books to her is like that is so. What I was gonna say too about James is that it's not just that the people bought James. It's that enough people did read it and said to their friends, you have to read this. Nothing takes off like that unless there's word of mouth support.
And I mean, honestly, James is a really easy sell. It's like, oh, it's Huck Finn,
right?
Conceptually, Jim, James. It's like, I mean, it's just.
But I mean, what you were saying, what sort of going back to the Gabby thing is like, you tell her like, this is a book about this. Yeah. Like, I think you'd be into it,
and she's like, oh, that's so cool.
That recommendation goes a long way too, of like someone you trust, and like people don't look at ads and think, oh, I trust. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I think that and because what we were talking about before, reading is so personal, getting a personal recommendation from someone is huge. Yeah. Yeah. So I think
I guess that's why these books go off on TikTok and shit. It feels like personal recommendations. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You guys aren't on TikTok?
No.
That was a joke.
I'm on some TikTok.
My sister my sister's on that fucking Fourth Wing shit. I see her.
I don't know what that is. What's that?
That's a Rebecca Yar. I'm sure you know that, right? That's his dragon fucking shit.
Dragon novels.
Honestly, like.
Where's your dragon novel?
Yeah, I might have to do it, but she got the second hard cut. I mean, these are big books. She ain't never she ain't read nothing for 2 years. She's reading these books, and all of a sudden she's happy. She wasn't happy for like,
oh yeah,
and now she's like in a good mood. I was like, this is good, even this dumb shit.
Because they're good love stories.
No, I don't know. They're like fucking horny dragon shit. I don't know.
Yeah,
she might be.
I think I'm gonna work on an erotic novel.
See, you got to. I mean, yeah. There's but
I've been told I could only
one
read
fuckboy an erotic novel with his skin flaking off.
Yeah.
See, everyone want to read fuckboy because they seen Sean in those Balenciaga pants, So
because the author photo.
No, they don't want to read fuckboy. They wanted to.
They want to. Well, they're mad.
Yeah.
See, that was the problem. You were too good looking in those Balenciaga pants.
Wasn't
it wasn't no problem. I mean, but that's what.
Yeah.
Wait.
It was a plan all along.
The fucking Argentine we were talking about was. What that you can't say that on there?
I don't know.
You say Why not? Well, you might get in trouble. I forgot you got a real job.
Oh my god, I know, dude. You're over here talking shit about his boss, like, bro.
Well, I just said his boss.
You just killed the first hour, bro. I'm literally like, I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, that's 20 minutes, bro.
You can put all that out. You can put all that out. I'm joking. I'm sure Jackson Howard's lovely. I've never met
Jackson's
him.
not my boss. But just for the record,
coworker.
Just a friend. I'm talking shit about Ben's friend.
Just for the record. No, and it's
God can feel it. The planes are coming right now. It's like, Harold, you're starting up again.
I always forget. People have like jobs and shit.
Man.
They gotta, But okay, wait. So let's go back to what we were talking about.
Cut all of this out, producer. No.
Yeah. But just like I see it at the gym, like there's some randos at the gym read my novel just because they know me, and they're like,
I mean, I'm obviously everything I'm saying is just a selling point for
and
myself.
also,
and for you.
Sort of,
I'm like, you know what I think a novel should do?
Sort of the inside part of that too is there is a way in which authors now are expected to have some sort of outward facing presence.
Yeah.
And I think that isn't just like a trend. It's like partly what you're saying is like to see sort of to see the person behind the product, or to see the reality sort of somebody's life, whether that, it's a curated reality if it's on
Well,
social media.
you
realize,
and this is
you realize me and Harold started a new archetype of writer. There's no writer with a suspect podcast.
Yeah.
And we haven't even started trying.
Yeah.
We haven't even started trying. Wait till we start getting
you see, this was a big difference from when I published my first book. I was like, I thought, okay, this book is fucking sick. I don't have to do anything. Like this book, I don't want to be a part of, this and that and this. But now it's like, especially, I love putting shit out for free on my Substack. I love putting out a Substack every week. I think it's sick. My friends like it. And it's just like, I like being public in a certain way. And, just, I think that, we always talk about what literature in the 21st century looks like. And that's part of it, is being
visible,
a public-facing writer. Like,
well, that's
not
part of
even
your
that,
writing.
but I think
that's
being
visible.
That's the point.
Yeah,
like
what you've been telling me for a long
I've
time.
been talking about that. Well, yeah, it's just your whole life is part of your whole writing act. I feel like.
Yeah,
which like some writers in the past understand, whether they're like upping their self mythology or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's the point. Like whatever, Faulkner saying he like fought in some, or Bolaño saying he fought in the Pinochet regime, whatever, against the regime, and all his friends saying. But like that's the point. Like your whole life is So I think that people are doing that in interesting ways is good.
Do you feel like? How do you feel like your taste is evolving as an editor?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I guess that how is my taste evolving? It sort of goes back to, well, okay, this is a trend that I'm just noticing, sort of because of the way that our schedules are set up. Like I'm always working on like multiple things at the same time at different stages of the production timeline. And something that I notice is a trend, a lot of the books that I'm working on have this like very strong like anti-authoritarian component, and whether that's like political or just like thinking about just like interrogating power in a way through fiction or through poetry. I've noticed that. So I guess because like the stakes feel higher, like I feel like we're just like the way that the world is, like it feels like something that maybe is sort of just fun or just kind of like fun, and that's all it is like not enough. And so I think that and then in terms of just like the prose and the sentences and stuff, like I just have to be surprised, and I feel like because the quantity of stuff that I read, like just how much reading I have to do for this job, like surprises are harder to come by. And so like I just want to be surprised, and then I always am just like this is sort of not so much about taste, but more kind of like criteria, I guess, is like the end. Like you have to nail the end. Like if I get to the end and I'm like wah, wah, like nothing is worse.
What's like some lame ass shit you've been seeing in your submission?
Lots of Appalachia. No. Sometimes it's not even that the work is bad. It's just not for me.
But sometimes it's lame though.
Correct.
It must be.
Correct. And I just wish that, there was like, I don't know. I can't really name a trend or anything. I guess I just,
well, what's like immediately like the manuscript is, I'm throwing it out the window.
Click clack, walking down the hall, bro. Click clack, and I look into my eyeballs. Put my eyeballs on.
That's pretty good.
I don't know. It just has to be good.
So that's what you just posted up, just reading submissions all day?
Well, not every day. I mean,
you gotta send like probably a lot of emails. Huh?
It's a lot of email. I'm spending the hottest years of my life sending email. I can't believe it. It's being working in an editorial department at the junior level is basically an administrative job, and you do your editorial stuff sort of like an additional kind of part-time job. It's like 1.5, 1.75 jobs. So you read when I can. I try to take at least like 45 minutes to an hour a day, like between meetings or something, to read
submissions.
Not even submissions. Usually now with submissions, I know, like, I'm going to read the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like what I want to actually read, I'll read the whole thing.
Yeah.
And usually like it's rarer these days that I'll get 30 pages in and be like, nah. Like usually, yeah, if I'll know right away.
Who got a better agent, me or Sean?
I met your agent, but we don't work together, so I can only. I mean,
Yeah.
This podcast's over.
No,
I'm shutting it down.
Yeah.
Clam hands.
You want to do 30 seconds on Humpty?
I want to do more than 30.
Okay,
Are we running out of time?
No. I don't want to.
I want you to talk. I'm interested.
Wait.
Well, maybe
You just been reading it for a while. I ain't looked at it since December until today. Well, I mean, honestly, like the table of contents looks so sick now. I just did the table of contents in the first section, and I'm
how
like,
much are you? I'm just curious. What are you?
You better get in there, Ben. He about to rewrite the whole thing.
No, literally, Harold. I have it in my bag. I'm so close to being done. I just
No,
let the man finish his edits,
but it's okay. Like whatever you have will help me.
Yeah.
What I'm doing is I'm just making. I'm not changing anything structurally.
Yeah.
I'm not changing. I'm just
plot.
making everything. The prose so much sicker.
Okay, nice.
I'm making everything. I'm making the prose better and more readable at every point.
Okay.
Is what I'm doing.
Okay, word.
I mean, the first section looks so sick,
Well,
like you don't even know.
Let's talk about what it is, because maybe you can help me sort of.
Yeah.
I can tell you how I've been talking about it.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can
Go
tell
ahead.
me
I'd love to know.
Yeah. So this is again going back. I mean, yeah, we can workshop this. This is a work in progress.
Yeah.
But so we had been talking about it. We had been talking about it sort of like Euphoria-esque. It's about this group of high schoolers and all of the shit that they get into. And I was talking to someone about it, and they're like, "Well, it's sort of more like Friday Night Lights." And I never watched Friday Night. Have you guys watched that show?
Of course.
Yeah,
of
and
course.
I listened to the book too after I, just when I was working on a football thing.
So someone said, like, why don't you just say Euphoria meets Friday Night Lights? Like, that's the most kind of legible.
Yeah, that's pretty legible, and that sounds sick just off the top.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So that's sort of how we've been talking about it. And when you say Humpty Dumpty, people are like, "Huh."
Yeah.
But I love that, and I think
that
was something we talked about too. Is just the title and like. So yeah, I've been saying, it's about irreversible consequences, and it's about the ways that it's the story of the fall. It's the story of the rise and the fall, and what it means basically to do what happens when you do things that you can never take back.
Yeah.
And I think I want to talk to you more about this in like a spoiler-free zone, but like, the guys, all of the perpetrators of horrible things get what's coming to them to a certain extent.
In some ways.
They befall some tragedy or something.
Their lives follow the path. I mean, they make their own choices, and
And because I know you and your work, and because I've been reading the stack and listening to you guys on the pod, like these are things that you like are so engaged with, these questions of morality and the stakes, these sort of divine stakes of like fate and consequence and what happens to like what is a good life basically. And like the parents are really interesting to me too. Like they made these kids. They raised Darius, and so to a certain extent there's even that moment where Beatrice is like, are we bad parents? And John is sort of just like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And so they're really fascinating. Like they wrong each other, they hurt each other, but they support each other, they love each other. And you could say that for any number of the characters. They all sort of do bad things and also try to, well, not all of them, but try to do good things. So maybe you could talk too about the like novel 1 to novel 2. Like we have the sort of a lot of parallels between this family of 4 and the mom and the dad, the brother, the sister, like how they're different, how they're similar, like what you were doing with this.
So in the first novel, that was a pretty like just in terms of like style, that was like, are you gonna smoke? Roll me one if you're gonna smoke. But the first novel, I was trying to do like, it was so minimal, like in terms of, I didn't use any punctuation other than period, the end marks. I didn't have no semicolons and commas. It was just commas and the basic end marks. And it was just, the whole thing was pretty austere. And it's just like, I'm going to tell this family story in this, austere way. And I feel like this one is more expansive.
Totally.
And I mean, I think it's way funnier and it moves way faster. As much as
it is so funny. What's the line of like, and he creamed himself, no pun intended.
Yeah.
Or there's another one too that's like that. It's like, and he blew himself.
No, but see, and that's the other thing is like the narrative. The narrative
there's
voice
more
is
than
way
just
different.
Cum jokes in this book.
Yeah, but there's a lot of them.
not talk about, or actually, we should.
Yeah.
We should. Yeah, I don't want to blow up your. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting how you talk about it.
Yeah. How you mean?
No, I don't know. Just like the events it's based off of.
Oh yeah.
Were you around for that?
I remember the headlines, but I don't really.
But you were aware of it.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. Have you done any like looking into it since?
No.
Yeah, I mean that's probably. I mean, there's
You think you're gonna talk about that when you?
Well, I think I'll have to.
Of course.
But I mean, if it comes up, but I just was basing it off of what I experienced living through it. I didn't do no fucking research or anything like that. I knew the people involved.
But you went to a different school, right?
I went to a different school, but I superimposed everything onto my school. As if it had happened in my school. It happened in a different year than it did at my school.
Right.
But I mean, I seen it, and it was. I mean, the counterfactual was just like, what if this had happened to me? What if I was a perpetrator? My first book started with the counterfactual. What if my dad had ditched my mom in Brazil with me and my sister, right? And that's just, how it makes sense to write for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was just like, what if I had been involved in that? Which, I mean, who like, I can see how something like that would happen to someone who's maybe not fucking evil or nothing like that, just.
Yeah, and I think that's.
And it's just interesting to me. How do you fucking that how you destroy your own life is a fascinating question for me. That's what I think is at the heart of the first book, and it's the heart of this one too.
Yeah.
How do you make choices that fuck up your own life? Because I believe in free will. And to a certain extent.
Yeah, and Danielle is a perfect example of that. I mean, he is so self-destructive, and Darius is a little more destructive.
Yeah, he is, and he's certainly less sympathetic than Daniel is.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree. But yeah, I mean,
But though, I mean, we might be talking too inside baseball about the novel, but I think in terms of self-destructiveness and all that, Harry's the most interesting, and in those ways. But see, Humpty Dumpty, Harry Darius, we got.
Oh damn, dude!
I mean, come on, Humpty Dumpty's a perfect fucking title. Like
it's the same number of letters as Harold Rogers.
Yeah, I mean, come on, that's my That's my. I mean, my name's Harold Darius. That ain't no coincidence.
So was the Twitter thing part of?
Oh, that was real. Yeah,
okay.
I mean, real to a certain extent. Like the actual machinations of how the info got to the hacker group. I don't know what really happened.
Yeah.
I was like, that was the chain of events that I made up. Like were pulled from various different things, but there's no way to know how those fucking hackers got that information.
I'm just curious, sort of less about the plot of the book, but just like now that you're doing these revisions and stuff, like what have you been like? Is it just that time has given you like more space to think about it, or
like since I finished The Last Word, I read 20 great books, and I've been putting out a whole bunch of material, and it's just there's like I was looking at the first section. There's a certain diffusiveness to the prose sometimes, and it's a bit too like it's too abstract in ways, and it can still be playful, but it can be more. I'm trying to bring it more tactile,
less
perspicacious. Perspicacious is a great word. And
I know it's everywhere,
and it's a perfect word.
It might be your favorite word.
It might be. I think I used it on the Giovanni blurb too. It's a great word. But yeah, just playing with, that from one moment. I mean, that I was doing before, but just leveling it up. I'm just making the prose better. And one thing I'm doing is I'm putting, in those third person sections, it was all one sentence, right? Now I'm using periods throughout. I mean, the sentences are still.
You did that last time too. You made it more readable.
Yeah. I did. I mean, I made you read the old version of my first book, and then I mean, I made it way better.
Yeah.
I thought when I rewrote the whole thing.
We should take a pause because this video is gonna get too long.
Yeah.
Yeah, we might go more if you want to, or you can balance.
You want to hang out for the bonus hour?
But I
Sure.
appreciate. Yeah. All right.
What are you guys gonna